Hi, this is Rich Ustowski, and I'm here today, March 31st, 2015, with Fran Tucker as part of the Center for Middletown Studies High School Consolidation Oral History Project. And Fran was nice enough to sit down and talk with us today about the recent high school consolidation here in Muncie. And like she pointed out before we even got on camera, it's not so recent anymore. It happened almost a year ago. So if you wouldn't mind, Fran, can you start off by saying your name for us and then saying where you live, your age, what you do?
Okay, my name is Fran Tucker, and I live in Muncie, Indiana. I work at Ball State University at the Technology HelpDesk, and I am 59 and a half years old.
Okay. Well, thank you. Could you start off by telling us what your thoughts and opinions on the consolidation are?
Well, at the first part, I thought this isn't going to work. But so far, I haven't really heard anything bad about it. I don't really talk to any students or parents, so I don't really know what's going on inside the school.
Sure.
But it seems to have worked out really well, considering it was done, I thought it was done quickly.
Okay, so I'm honing in on the word quickly. So because you're not the first person that we've interviewed that said it was done fast. Well, what do you mean by that?
Well, because they decided in around November of 2013, I believe, to consolidate and for the next school year, which was 2014. And it seemed to me like that was only about 9 months, maybe 10 months to actually consolidate both of those schools. And I just didn't feel like there was enough time to iron out everything.
Sure. Would you say, I guess you're kind of getting to the point of maybe it was done too quickly. Not just quickly, but too quickly. Is that safe to say that's...
Yeah, I would say that.
Okay. And is that's what you felt at the time? Have your opinions changed since then?
They have changed. There's really nothing in the paper. There's really not a lot of updates about anything that's going on.
Yeah.
But I feel like they probably worked their tails off to get it done. So I know they had to work out some transportation issues and things along those lines. And it seemed like everyone came together. The MITS bus came together, M&M bus came together. And so I'm actually pretty pleased about the consolidation.
Okay, so skeptical at first, but
Skeptical,
pleased
yeah.
in the end? Okay. Do you feel like your voice, personally, was heard in the decision-making process that led up to consolidation?
Well, I didn't actually verbalize anything to anyone, but in my opinion, I felt like the consolidation should have probably been done prior.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
To at least, well, in 2010, they came out with a report. They had the Blue Ribbon Commission, and I looked that up so I could get that, pretty straight. And that was one of their recommendations, was to combine the high schools. So I felt like, I think everyone deep in their heart already knew that was going to happen eventually.
Writing was on the wall?
It was. The writing was on the wall.
Okay. That's interesting because when we interviewed Larry Riley, he referred to an article he wrote like 5 or 10 years ago in the paper, pretty much outlining what needed to be done for consolidation and saying that it should have been done then. And then he thought it was funny that it played out exactly as he had predicted, but only 5 or 10 years later.
Right.
Why do you think it was inevitable? What's going on here in town that you think made it like that?
Well, the enrollment has declined. That's probably the biggest thing. That just makes sense. As the enrollment declines, you don't really need two schools. Economic, they don't have the money that they used to have, and it just seemed almost wasteful to have two high schools in a population of 70,000 or however we have.
Yeah.
And it just, and then when I went back and I looked at some of the community schools statistics, I noticed that there had been a decrease for several years, not just 5 years or 4 years. So I don't think that we're going to see an increase anytime soon. And I mean, it made sense all the way around, and I had thought that for a long time. I didn't really have the love for the schools like some people did. I never went to Muncie Community Schools, so I wasn't attached to anything. So I guess that's why I was kind of, when I was looking at some of the questions, I was like, oh my God, I don't even know how to answer these things,
Yeah. But I get what you're saying there, but it's also interesting to have that outside perspective because so many people who spoke up at the town hall meetings were attached to a high school. So it's nice to get maybe your outsider perspective here. Do you feel like you speak for a certain neighborhood or side of town?
Not really. I met a lot of Southside people during this time, and I listened to them talk, and it sort of changed my perspective a little bit, but at the same time, I'm like, we have to change. And some of the reasonings why they wanted to keep the school open were really just emotional. They just really loved their school, and I can understand that to a point.
Yeah, that's another good point you bring up because I don't know if you had a chance to watch the town hall meetings when they were online, but there was a big difference in terms of the emotion expressed between the people who spoke, for Central and the people who spoke for Southside.
Well, I attended the Southside, the first town hall meeting, and it was standing room. I had to stand in the back. But eventually I left because it was the same thing over and over again. And I left before it was finished, but there was a lot of emotion going on in that room.
Was that the meeting that was held at Southside High School? Okay. So yeah, it was home turf for all of those folks. So what side of town geographically do you live on?
I live on the south side.
You live on the south side. Do you feel any sort of identity with that side of town, with the high school, just living there, even though you didn't go to Southside High School per se?
Well, sort of. In the fall, I could hear the band play. I would hear them practice, and I like that. I like to hear that. I like to hear the football games. But I felt like it was probably more of a memory of when I was younger at my hometown. But I kind of miss that a little bit. I miss going out and sitting on my back porch in the cold and listening to them and smelling the fall leaves and, and so now you go out and it's all quiet. I'm like, so
yeah, that just goes to show you, even though you weren't attached because you went there, you still had some form of connection to the high school. Do you feel like Southside High School, even it is a middle school now, so that they did keep that building working, but just as a middle school. Do you think the south side of town is missing Southside High School right now?
I haven't really actually talked to anyone, so no one's really said anything. There hasn't really been anything in the paper. They had that meeting right after they decided to do the consolidation, and only 20 people showed up.
Really? Okay.
And so I don't know if it's I don't know if they were just worn out from the fight or if people didn't know about it, but I think people have adjusted.
Okay. Let's keep talking about North Side and South Side divisions. So, it's pretty well known that the North Side, South Side divisions in Muncie have been around for a long time. Even going back to when the Lenz wrote their original Middletown book in the 20s. And several speakers at the town hall meetings, almost 100 years later, they mentioned that they were concerned with the consolidation, that the students from the two sides would come together and they wouldn't get along so well. There'd be tension, there might be fights, there'd be bullying. Why do you think there was that fear?
I think because they were such a rival, and I don't really relate to the North Side, South Side divide.
Okay.
So it's real hard for me to actually understand why they have that and why it's been kept alive for so long.
Sure.
So, gosh, that's a really tough question without sounding. I just don't understand. I didn't really understand it.
Okay.
they had some valid points, I think, when they stood up, because, Southside or Central has a reputation of being a rough school. Southside sort of has a reputation, but not nearly as bad as Central. So I can understand that they were concerned about that.
When you say rough, what do you mean?
Well, there's some, things that have happened at Central. They had the stabbing. They had the rape.
Yeah.
So those things, they stick in your mind. And even if nothing happens, you still relate Central to those two major. And there was probably other things that happened too. And then you're bringing all the kids together and you're putting them under one roof. And kids seem to be adaptable though. And
so you're giving the kids more credit than a lot of the speakers do?
Yeah, I think so. And they were probably going to lose their identity too. They felt like they were going to lose their identity because Central's been here for, it seems like, forever. And then Southside, and Southside hasn't. And so, they were proud of their colors. They were proud of being a rebel, proud of being a Bearcat, and they were, afraid that they were going to be second-class citizens. So, I guess I understand all of that, but I don't. So, I don't relate to it, but I understand where they're coming from.
Okay. So you were just talking about identity, which is kind of nice because my next question has to do with identity. And it's, what role do you think a high school plays in a community's identity?
I think it plays a big part. When people are looking to come to a community, they also look at the schools. And a high school, sports are very popular in the state. So if you have a good sports team, that looks good on your community. If you have a great school, that looks good on the community. You hear about other communities and their schools are dangerous, they're frightening. You don't really want to go to that community. You may not even want to go to the school for a game, but you go because your sports.
Okay, so it's kind of like you're saying that the high school is a reflection of the community.
It can be. It's it's a good portion of it, because when people look to relocate, if they're getting a job, they want to know about the schools, and it's just a really so it is a reflection. And plus, everyone has a high school.
It's a common factor that you can judge different towns, but that's a good point. On that, what do you think the new consolidated Muncie Central High School says about Muncie right now?
It says that we can get along.
Okay.
I really don't know much about anything that's going on in the school, so it's hard for me to say anything about that, but I haven't really heard anything. And I'm sure if there was a riot or a fight or anything, we would hear about that, and we haven't heard it. So it feels to me like they've adjusted so well that, we can do that. We can do that here in Muncie.
Yeah, I like the way you put that. So you talked earlier about the decline in population as a contributing factor to why consolidation might have been inevitable. Related to that, do you think that the big economic changes that Muncie has experienced were contributing factors maybe to consolidation?
Yeah, because if we don't have jobs here, people leave. And when people leave, they take their families with them. And if we don't have jobs here for people to come in, it's not going to increase. People are having smaller families too, so that's probably a good, a section of it. But if your population begins to decline, so is your school. It just, kids don't live here by themselves.
That's very true. I like that you're looking at the sociological area there. I like that. So this is my last formal question for you here. Well, maybe, do you have kids?
No.
No kids? Okay. So do you have any ties to the Muncie school system that brought you to that first town hall meeting?
Not really. done some volunteer work at an elementary school.
Okay.
In elementary. So my sister was a teacher for 35 years.
Oh, really? In the Muncie school system?
No, in Michigan.
Oh, okay.
So, but it's the same. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
I was more concerned about. Really, it was the bus issue that really got me interested and more into what was going on at Muncie Community Schools. Plus, I knew that their funding was going down, and I felt like there was a lot of things that could probably be done. And honestly, I want a good school system. I really want a good school system, and I think we can have it. But we have to, this is going to sound horrible, but we do have to change. We have to change and we have to evolve.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's not just change, but evolve and adapt to the current circumstances.
We can't, I'm going to go off on a soapbox here,
Go for it.
but we can't actually continue to run the school system the way we ran it 20 years ago. We can't run it the way we did 10 years ago. There's so many things that we can do, and I always, when I think of children and I think of kids in school, I think of them as our future, because they're the ones that are going to be graduating. They're going to go out into the workforce, and we want to prepare them. And if they don't have a good education, K through 12, they're not going to make it in college, and or even in the workforce. So to me, education is really important. Just for that simple thing, it's almost kind of selfish. Like, you guys are going to be paying into Social Security. You need to be better, And I think that we have the facilities, and I think we have the teachers. We just need to think outside the box, I guess. And I can't give you any instances because I'm not really in the education system, but I think we could do more.
Okay. I'm glad you said you couldn't give me instances, because I would have came back and asked you.
I knew I would have said, no.
No, I understand what you're saying. Okay. So my last question, what advice would you give to children growing up in Muncie today who are living in a city and school system that are changing, like we were just talking about?
Oh, that's a tough one. Well, one thing I would recommend that they do is get involved in their school.
Okay.
Join a club. Go run for student council if they felt that that's something they wanted to do. Be in sports if they could. Join a band. If you feel like you're a part of the school system, and you're going to feel so much better about yourself. So that's what I would tell them. I'm going to put in a plug here. I met a young man. He's a freshman at Central High School, and I can't remember his name, but I talked to him, and he has been on student council for 3 years. He volunteers at the Boys and Girls Club. He's a vice president of a new club that they created called, I think it's called the Keystone Club. And so when I was sitting there talking to him, I just got so excited, because he's 15 or 16?
Yeah.
And he's already done all these things. And so he's going to go on to college. He's going to go on into the world. And so, I don't know, I just got so excited about it. I thought, well, I wonder if I should say anything about that. But when you get involved in something, then you start to feel like you're connected to it and that you own it. And then you want to do well. You're not going to want to go in and spray paint the bathroom. You're not going to want to do those things because you own it. It's part of you.
Yeah. Would you say, going off of that, do you think with a consolidated high school, which translates into consolidated resources, do you think there are more opportunities like that?
I think there are more opportunities because Southside comes with a great band. Central has good sports. I'm not a sports fan, but so I think combining that plus just all the other opportunities. I mean, they could probably. I think they're starting to do. I can't remember what it's called, where you can do pre-college classes.
Oh, you know what, the name's gonna slip my mind too. But I know what you're talking about.
They may not have that opportunity because they don't have the money. Now they're going to have a little bit more money, I would think, and they can invest in things and in programs like that. So
yeah. All right. So that wraps up all the formal questions, but I want to give you the floor
Okay.
to add anything, mention anything else that we haven't talked about. It's all on you.
Well, I don't really have anything to say. I am pleased with the consolidation. I was very nervous about it prior to that. I just felt like it was, and we talked about this earlier.
Sure.
And so I don't really have any bad feelings about it. I think it's a good thing.
So you're hopeful.
I'm very hopeful. I think it's gonna turn out. I think it's already turning out.
Well, we will end on that. Thank you, Fran.
Well, you're welcome. Oh my gosh, that was horrible.